Hello, my mystery-loving friends. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. I'm going to be reading Chapter 13 today from A History of Murder, and I'm back on the Kindle. I kind of go back and forth. What do you like reading on? Do you like a paperback, a hardback, the convenience of an e-reader? Let me know in the comments of what you like to read from, and it's interesting to me to find out. Of course, A History of Murder is available in both ebook and paperback forms, so in whatever way you like to read, it's out there for you. So today, let's get started with Chapter 13, The Creepy Undertaker. Bree, I asked, could you move the book club meeting from 7 o'clock to 8? There's something I need to do. No problem at all. I'm sure everyone will understand. What do you need to do? Asked Grandma Lily after Bree had flitted out the front door with a promise to see us later. I've decided I want to read the letters. Grandma acted as if she didn't hear me. She looked into the bag up from the vintage grill and took a big whiff. I love Eric's cooking. She tore off a hunk of French bread and began devouring it. I rubbed my temples. Grandma, can you please focus? I'm trying to save your bacon here. She held up one finger while she chewed. I know you're worried, but after talking with Chief Garner, I'm sure everything is going to be all right. I rolled my head from side to side, stretching my neck. A faint headache was setting in. You may trust him, but you need to watch out, and I need all the information I can get to see if we can track down who really killed Art. I should read the letters between you and Nancy. Grandma examined me while reaching into the bag again, this time coming up with a giant chocolate chip cookie. Want one? She was driving me crazy. I held out my hand. She handed me a cookie with a victorious grin. With one bite, my knees went weak. Did I detect bacon? Eric was a food genius. There was a knock at the front door. Before either of us could answer, it flew open, and a booming voice shouted, Lily, my dear, I am here to comfort you. Elliot arched his back and gave a long hiss. Grandma Lily made a strange sound that resembled a cough and a laugh combined. She began to hurry away. I don't want to see him. Grandma Lily, Lily, where are you, dear? The loud voice called. I turned my attention to the direction of the voice coming from the foyer and went to greet our visitor. The man standing there was at least a decade older than my grandmother. His bony face and hands stood out stark white against his dark, out-of-date clothing. His coat reminded me of something the creepy Undertaker character would wear in a horror movie. His wingtip shoes were no doubt authentically vintage. The elderly man was completely bald, but two ungroomed white eyebrows framed his face. To top it off, I caught a whiff of mothballs. You aren't Lily, he announced with annoyance. Good eye. I'm Chloe, her granddaughter. And you are? William Weston. His eyes narrowed. Granddaughter, you say? Lily never mentioned a granddaughter. I frowned too. Funny. I'd been meeting people all day long who knew about me. If this man didn't know who I was, my grandma didn't want him to. Where is she? He demanded. Not here. Where then? I'll go find her. Mr. Weston, this is not a good day. Oh, some might consider today a good day. A very good day indeed, considering what happened to that good-for-nothing Arthur. I was taken aback. Up until now, except for Grandma Lily, no one had said anything against Art. You didn't like him? I asked. He was a lech. The moment he came to town, he decided to woo my Lily. From the time they met, she'd have nothing more to do with me. Your Lily? In the corner, Elliot was still arching his spine as if prepared to fight. Jed was nowhere to be seen. Mr. Weston was the first human that he hadn't tried to lick to death. Well, I had invited her to dinner several times, and she would have accepted eventually if that rogue hadn't come to town. I knew he was a menace right from the start. It's karma. That's what I say. He was a bad seed. What do you mean by that? He was a bad seed. A drop of spittle flew from Mr. Weston's teeth. I felt goosebumps rise on my arms and neck. Lily deserves an upstanding, fine gentleman. Take me, for example. Now that he's out of the way, we can finally be a couple. The corners of his lips turned up, but his expression looked more like a grimace than a smile. "Where were you last night, Mr. Weston?" I asked pointedly. "Whatever do you mean?" "You seem to have a strong motive for wanting art out of the picture." A silence hung between us. When I began to speak again, he cut me off with a wave of his long, bony hand. "Tell Lily I came calling." With that, he turned to leave. I watched him maneuver the heavy front door and take the porch steps rather wobbly. He had clearly expressed a motive for killing Art, but did the skeletal old man have the means? Grandma Lily crept back into the parlor. Thank goodness he left. I put my hands on my hips. "Yes, Weston's gone. Now tell me what's going on." Just then, the home's landline rang. "I better get that." Grandma Lily rushed away. The woman had the uncanny ability to avoid all my questions today. In fact, the next hour became a whirlwind of phone calls and visits from neighbors with condolences for Grandma. The neighborhood ladies were on the case. We collected sweet sentiments and numerous pans of baked goods and casseroles. I recognized several familiar faces I hadn't seen in years. It was especially nice to see Mrs. Harland from next door. When I was little, I'd sneak over and eat raspberries from the bushes in her backyard. It used to make her fighting mad when she didn't have enough left for her bed and breakfast guests. All of this was great, but I was beginning to worry I wouldn't get a chance to read the letters before the book club convened. Luckily, I was wrong. As if by design, at 7 o'clock, everyone went home and the phone stopped ringing. "Finally, I can get to those letters," I sighed. "I was hoping you'd forget," Grandma whispered. "Nope, I'll go up to my room to get them." "Wait." "What is it?" I asked. "You won't find them in there. You won't find them in your room." "Then where?" I asked. "You won't find them at all. I burned them." Grandma raised her eyebrows expectantly. "You did what?" I cried. "You were right. The letters did more harm than good. When Chief Garner called to say he was coming over to interview me, I went to find them. I thought I might show him and confess everything Nancy and I had planned. But when I opened them up and saw the things I wrote..." Grandma Lily's eyes were becoming teary. "I told Nancy I'd make Art McMillan pay. I told her that he would regret the day he ever met me. I wrote that Art deserved to be punished for what he did to her." I slumped heavily onto the couch, exhausted. I felt as old as Mr. Weston looked. I began mulling over this precarious situation. On the one hand, Grandma could safely continue to play the grieving girlfriend with the letters gone. But what if they had contained the very information I needed to solve the mystery? Now they were ashes. I looked toward the now cold fireplace and wanted to cry. "Chloe," Grandma Lily whispered. When I didn't reply, she murmured, "I'll be in the backyard." When she had gone, Jed came to me and put his chin on my lap. How did a dog know when we were upset? Was it their centuries-old role as our best friends that had ingrained in them the ability to sense it? "Jed, what am I doing trying to solve a murder case? I'm not a detective. I'm a barista." Jed lifted his head and tilted it to one side. "You're right. I'm not cut out for this." I rubbed the scruff around his neck. Jealousy got the best of Elliot, so he hopped on the couch beside me. He purred and looked into my eyes. What do you think, Kitty? Will I be able to get Grandma off the hook? Elliot's yellow eyes narrowed. I know. It's a long shot, I sighed. But for now, inexperienced or not, I'm still Grandma's best chance at getting out of this. Jed let out a whine. Apparently, he and I were both worried. All right, that does it for chapter 13. I sure thank you for joining me again today, and I look forward to reading chapter 14 to you next, Gone in a Whisper. If you enjoyed this video, I'd sure love it if you gave it a thumbs up. That helps other people find my stories, and leave me a comment. Again, let me know, what kind of book do you like to read? Ebook, paperback, hardback? I'm interested in knowing. Thanks for being part of my cozy community. Bye-bye.